Welcome back to Scoop's Latest, where in every episode we cover different topics pertaining to the guest that comes on each episode. I'm your host, Kate Ryan, and today I'm here with.
Camden do it.
All right, so this episode is going to cover perception and how those key elements maintain and pertain and affect our life and what goes on within it. So, the first question that I have here today is what is change and how does it impact and help us develop farther?
I think change can be defined as something that is out of the norm. So, if you've lived in your hometown your entire life, you are only used to the people that live there. Like, you haven't seen a different type of culture, you haven't seen a different type of, even down to how people drive. Like when we came here, one of the biggest talking points was, oh my gosh, I hate North Carolina drivers, I hate New Jersey drivers, blah, 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 blah. It's it keeps us on our toes and it keeps us kind of not worrisome, but looking forward to what's around the corner. And it develops us. I hate to use the term puts hair on our chest, but it gives us experience that could only be described and gained through moving us from one point to the second. And I find that super interesting because if you move a fish to a different habitat, that fish, it's kind of a sink or swim. Either the fish is going to die or it's going to flourish.
Mhm. No, I totally agree with that. I think change plays such a big role in the way we live our life when it comes to our circumstances, what we've been through, everything that has happened. It's changing constantly. Your friend group, who you have feelings for, all of those things are constantly changing and you adapt to the situation that you're in based off of that. And I'd like to say that I think the people that can adapt the most to change are some of the most successful people that I know. They are able to be like, okay, my life isn't the same as it was last year, but that's totally okay. If anything, I'm embracing it and I love it. And those are certain things that we just need to continue as the human race is just teaching our kids how to adapt to change. Another question that I'd like to throw out on the table is how do you think memory and recall work when it comes to a certain event?
I think humans are very dramatic. We either remember very good events or very bad. So if you had a bad moment in your life, you will only remember the darkest, grimmest point that you experienced. But the same can be said about the most positive part. Like it's kind of like going back to a horrible ex boyfriend or girlfriend. You're going to remember all the good, and you will forget the bad. You'd remember like, oh my gosh, she would always like. I love the way that she used to stare at me. I love the way that
Mm.
we used to hold hands. Just the inside jokes, but that's just the mind. I think that's just the mind playing a trick on you, and it's kind of leading you on to see through rose tinted glasses, ignoring all the bad that that person had put you through in the past.
No, definitely. I think when it comes to situations like that, and when it comes to recalling the memories that you have, specifically the bad ones, we tend to push them away instead of, I guess, taking them in and trying to heal from it. It's almost a trauma response. Like you see it in everyday life with your friends, your family, your significant other, whoever. They have gone through something in their life and they will try to almost ignore those bad feelings or even the good ones. As humans, we try so hard to, I think, push away our feelings because they can be scary.
And that goes back to the change. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
bringing you back to the uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and people like being in their safe space.
No,
So
definitely.
why would they actively try to remember the bad?
No, definitely. And that's the thing, too. Like, you see it, everybody tries to stay in their comfort zone if you have feelings that are maybe new and are uncomfortable and you haven't experienced them before, you're gonna try to push them away because your guard goes up naturally. It's a psychological feeling as human beings that we just try to push those specific feelings away, and instead of completely embracing them and taking them in, we're just like, nope, I want them gone. And that's why, I mean, every day I try to do something that's out of my comfort zone or maybe new. Just trying new things to help myself adapt to that feeling of being maybe out of my comfortability. I will try to put myself in a new social setting, or just honestly just pushing myself in general. How do assumptions and preconceptions affect how one perceives a certain event?
I think going into how you before you meet somebody, if a friend warns you about, oh my gosh, this person, this woman, she has this terrible history of being like super disrespectful to people when she gets close to them. She just walks all over them. You kind of hesitate to walk up to her, knowing if you do get close that she is hopefully not going to do it, but you're kind of hesitant. And I think that kind of immediately sets her further back because now she has to not only prove herself to be a good friend, but also disprove the allegation that she isn't somebody that walks all over
Mhm.
her friends.
No, I definitely can totally see where you're coming from with that. I think it's something that we naturally do as humans where we assume something about someone just right when we see them before we even introduce ourselves or give them a chance. We make these assumptions, and I think it's a protection thing. It's our way of trying to figure that person out before actually getting to go and know them. So if somebody seems shy or seems quiet, you're like, oh, I'm going to assume that that's the way they are. And then all of a sudden you get close to them, and those people that are just completely the opposite.
Yeah,
You meet them and you're like, okay, this person's definitely one of those people that's very reserved and is a shy human being. And then next thing you know, like they get comfortable around you and they all of a sudden come up with like these funny jokes that you've never heard them say before. It's just something that we do naturally. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing depending on how you look at it, because sometimes it can be a bad thing if you're automatically assuming bad things or bad morals, or not in bad morals. If you're automatically assuming that person is a bad person before you even meet them, then that's not good. But if you're maybe assuming something like, oh, I think that person's a really good person,
mhm.
and then you go and you meet them and you're like, oh, they were a really good person. Or you can be completely wrong too and you'd be like, oh, actually, no, that person's a shithead. But it just
You're right. It could
depends.
absolutely work in the positive way, like even down to like how people dress. Like it's very like comforting, and it's so interesting to see. It is also it can work in a good favor. Like girls always say, "I want a man that knows how to dress," and as soon as they lay eyes on a guy that does, he's already like miles ahead the competition. And it's so interesting that people draw conclusions based on perception,
Hmm.
but it's a double-edged sword, and
Hmm.
I kind of like that. It's a little bit risky, and who doesn't like a little bit of risk in their lives?
No, definitely. I think you definitely feel the risk when it comes to assuming something about someone, but even when it comes to like a business setting as well,
Mm,
the person that's going to be hired is the person that shows up and dresses well and looks professional. They're not going to hire the person that shows up in their pajamas to a work interview. They're just going to be like, oh, they're not going to take their job seriously. And it definitely depends on the situation, because it depends what job I guess you're necessarily doing. Maybe if you're a comedian, it's different because it fits your aesthetic to dress more casual because you don't want to seem
Super try hard. Or
or like stuck up.
right.
Because sometimes, again, that's a more of an assumption thing. We think that when someone's dressing super nicely, like if someone's wearing suits every day or dresses every day, you're like, oh, you make that assumption depending on the person that, oh, that person could be potentially stuck up or full of themselves, which, I mean, is completely untrue. Everybody has their own style, but there's just the good and the bad to everything. You could look at it and be like, oh, that person has a good style, they're professional. Or you'd be like, oh, I don't like that. Like, why are they so dressed up and not in casual clothing? It just depends on the way it's perceived. We make all these different perceptions of people, and we are such observant human beings. We are observant. We pay attention to what everybody else is doing, especially if we are not satisfied or happy with our lives. That's why you can always see that the most judgmental people are the most insecure with themselves. The ones that are starting the rumors, the ones that are bullying, are oftentimes way more insecure than the person that the rumors are being spread about or the person that's being bullied. It's just something that every human being has dealt with growing up. No matter what social circle you're in, you were either, I guess, unbothered, you weren't really spreading rumors about people or getting rumors spread about you, or you were and you were one of those people. And it just depends on your life and who has played their role within it. Going off of that, how do stereotypes affect people and their everyday life and how they are perceived?
Stereotypes are difficult because there's, as much as I hate to say it, there is a truth to every stereotype. Some, no matter how small, because it was birthed from something being repeated so many times. Like, sometimes they can be positive to get an inner look, but also they're like totally, judgmental and can be blatantly untrue. You know, I people question my sexuality every day based on the way I dress, and that's a stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
Well-dressed men are gay,
Mm-hmm.
and that's so disrespectful to me because I have never questioned my sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
and here I am being told by girls they want a man that knows how to dress. Okay, well now I'm teaching myself how to dress. Oh, well you must be gay. So it's kind of this circle, like a stereotype, that is a snake continually eating itself. And I think the perception needs to be squashed, but it's a lot harder than just saying I'm not gay.
Yeah. No, I definitely can totally see where you're coming from with that. Because, like me, who is a gay woman, there's all these stereotypes that gay women have short hair, they have these deep voices, and that's just totally not true. Anybody's sexuality is something that just depends on the person. Like, you might not be gay, but the next man that dresses well could be gay.
Exactly.
And it just depends on the person. And if we can stop assuming these things about each other, then we could become a more joyful and happy society. I think one day if I have kids, I'm not going to assume their sexuality the moment they're born. I'm not going to be like, oh, you're definitely straight. I will not make my kid come out if they are gay. I'm assuming you're bi until you tell me you're straight. And I think that's just the way that would make it so much easier for people who are gay in any way, shape, or form. And I think it would be make it easier for straight people too, because then they can just be like, oh, like no, I'm literally just straight. But I don't know, putting labels on things also can cause issues as well. There's the good to it and there's the bad to it, because then, someone could be like, oh, I'm not gay. And you'd be like, okay, well, then, they don't, like you in that way. Or you could be like, I don't really know. There's some people that are confused about their sexuality, and that's also okay because you're human, you
It's,
know? We're all just humans.
I think having labels in humans, it's so labels are clear cut. They're boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend. Obvious, clear cut. We as humans do not fit into every puzzle piece. We're not puzzle pieces. We are gray areas of everything. So it's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. We just don't like labels are so unnecessary, but also help us so much to kind of group things into each other. But a lot of times they're just redundant. And I think especially now in I think around since I think at least after COVID hit, after around 2019, labels became very redundant and unnecessary, and I think we as humans need to move past that.
I definitely can totally see where you're coming from with that because I think there's the yin and yang with labels. There's some labels that are like, okay, that's like a good label because it lets you know something about that person,
Exactly.
but there's also the bad to it because there's also so many stereotypes around like bi women as well. That's just something that I have seen within my community because I mean, I'm a lesbian, but that's irrelevant. There's a stereotype around bi women that they only they're only into women for male attention. There's that stereotype as well, which is completely not true. They can like both genders and live freely and peacefully. How does the halo effect work, and can you think of an example? The halo effect is when one trait of the person forms your overall opinion of the person, which I think is what we have been covering in this overall episode. But is there anything else you would like to add to that?
I think it's I think it's a relatively good thing to be. I wanna try and get controversial here and keep things fun. Um, I think the halo effect can be good because you see a pretty girl across the calf and you're like, I kind of want to go up to her, and maybe she's a really good person, and that wouldn't have happened if she was not attractive. I hate to say that, but pretty privilege is a thing. I think we can all agree that like it is a thing. And if you didn't, if she didn't catch your eye, I guess we can relate to this a lot because we both like girls.
Yeah.
So if we see a pretty girl across the calf, like
Yeah.
we're going to want to walk up to her more than if she was just not attractive. And that could be the birth of maybe a relationship, a friendship,
Mm.
or just nothing at all. Maybe she has a boyfriend, girlfriend, and you know, gracefully declined. But
Yeah.
getting our foot in the door
Mm.
can can be birthed from the halo effect, I think.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. The pretty privilege does exist, whether it's male or female. I mean, women who like men do that as well. They see a cute guy and they're like, okay, I they have more of a chance, I guess necessarily because I think people's first insight is a lot of the times based off of attraction. However, it also can be a bad thing because you can be super attracted to the person and just not have any type of chemistry. That's the most important part when it comes to building a relationship is having chemistry with that person. If you're with that person and you feel like you're the only person in the room, then that's a good sign that maybe you should try to push that relationship forward. If you're like, oh, that person's cute, but when you're with them, you're kind of just like, I'm bored, then maybe don't try to embrace that relationship or start that relationship. But as of right now, I that is where we're going to take a break right now and we are going to dive into some questions that you as the viewers have curiosity about. So, the first question that I have is how old are you and what year in school are you? So, I am 21 years old and I am a junior this semester. Another question that also has been submitted and asked is how did you get into podcasting? I got into podcasting. I had the idea to get into podcasting when I went abroad to Australia this past summer. I went there to work for a radio station, and it was a jazz radio. And when I was down there, I was able to put on my own late night radio show, and I started loving just being behind a microphone, being able to speak my word, speak my piece, and just be able to create something, put something out into the world. So that's kind of where I got the idea of getting into the podcasting program. And when I was down there, one of my buddies, Trey, he reached out to me and asked to start a podcast together. Now Trey isn't here. Trey isn't here today. He has been doing a ton of schoolwork, which is good. Put school first. So he has just been helping me edit and do all of the following. However, he is also hoping to put some episodes out on my YouTube channel, so keep an eye out for that. With keep an eye out for that because that will be coming out within the future. What is some advice you would give to someone who is starting a podcast? The advice that I would give to someone starting a podcast is honestly just do it. It doesn't matter what people think. If people are like, why is that person doing it? The only people that judge someone for starting someone is someone who is afraid to. So if you have had the idea to start a podcast or try anything, I don't know, play guitar, or learn how to play piano, or learn how to play a sport, just do it because you only live once and we live on a floating rock, and it's just so important to put yourself out there and learn about yourself and grow. I mean, if you take a look at my beginning episodes, you will see that the quality has definitely increased from the time that I started this podcast to where I am at now. And I'm hoping that it will continue to grow. No matter how many listeners I have, or no matter how many people subscribe to my channel, I do it because I want to create and I want to build my legacy. So that is going to be the end of our questions, and we are going to dive back into our episode. So, Camden, are you ready to start up again?
Yes, I am, Kate.
All right, sounds good. Perception is also a marketing tool. Do you think bandwagoning has any ethical concerns?
Yes, I do. I think first we should, define bandwagon. Do you know what bandwagoning is?
Define it for me. I think my own terminology with it, but if you define it for me, I would be more comfortable speaking about it. So that's all you take it away.
Bandwagoning is the grouping. It's marketing by telling the buyers that, oh my gosh, all of your friends have the new iPhone. They all have the new latest and greatest. You don't. You need to buy it. And it kind of creates a sense of like removal of self-worth because if everybody else has the latest and greatest and you don't, it kind of it forces you to want to join the bandwagon, which is where the term comes from. And I find it to be very wasteful. I think we are very immediate dopamine as fast as possible, and it's bad for us too because when that dopamine runs out, then we hit a crash, and it has some ethical concerns. It's very wasteful. Yeah, a lot of environmentalists have said it's not a healthy way to promote because where's your old iPhone gonna go? Well, it can be recycled. Okay, but it still has many years left on its life. So why are we recycling it now when maybe one less phone needs to be produced? It's back to a snake eating itself.
No, I can definitely 100% agree with that. I don't know why we there are good parts to upgrades, but when it comes to the marketing part of it, and you're like, oh, you need to buy the new iPhone like right now, but my phone still has like 4 or 5 years left on it. I can keep that thing for a lot longer.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't do that, especially the people that can afford to just go and buy a new iPhone. It's tearing apart our environment, and the earth is a gift that we have, and we don't want the future, maybe not well, yeah, the next generation and the generation after that is going to see the effects of being greedy. We're we have some I some sense of greed as humans, but learning how to hold back on that greed when it comes to certain things is what we need to be doing morally. There's definitely ethical concerns when it comes to that. I definitely can see that when it comes to little things, we just need to be more aware of our actions and how they affect other people. Because what we do affects maybe one or two people, but sometimes everybody. Me, me maybe saying something mean to my parents because I'm upset or I'm tired. It affects them when I'm rude. It affects the people around you so much. There's so much that goes into an environment, whether it's your friends, it's your family, whether it's the new iPhone or the next big thing
Yeah.
that we're going to support when it comes to idolizing a celebrity to the point where it's affecting other people because maybe that person isn't as good as a person as we're making them out to be. It's something that you see every day.
Have you seen that um, news story where when Taylor Swift goes to a new town, there's like an economic boom in that town, which is amazing. But the after effects environmentally, because the traffic is so bad, like it's shut down for like days after the concert is over. And that absolutely, like, it kind of goes hand in hand with bandwagoning. Everybody wants to go see Taylor Swift. Okay, well, now we saw her. It's all time to leave. And the economic boom for that town has been amazing, but they're so backed up after everybody leaves that it kind of, the trade off, it almost is questioned, is it worth it?
Hmm. Yeah, I think the only issue when it comes to anything controversial, you'll see it. There's two sides to the story,
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, this is the good part. However, this is the bad. It's the effect, I think, with everything. You can see the bad of the bandwagoning, but you can also maybe see with that concert that maybe that really helped somebody get through something that they were going through. Who knows? Maybe going to that Taylor Swift concert because they love her so much saved their life. They could have been suicidal or anything. And that's where life just has that push and that pull. We try to, fit everything into the good or the bad. But I think it comes back to everything has that balance to it. I don't fully believe that not everything we do is good and not everything we do is bad. Sometimes there's that middle ground. And
that
it's
gray
like,
area. Yeah,
oh, the gray. The gray is what affects us as a human race so unbelievably much to such an extent.
I 100% agree.
All right, well, we are coming to the end of the episode. make sure to follow me on social media. My Instagram is Scoops Latest, and my YouTube is Scoops Latest as well. You can find it in my Instagram bio. And my personal Instagram is Kate J. Ryan with two N's. My last name is spelled with one N, but that was already taken because Kate Ryan is a pretty common name. So, in case you were wondering. And Camden, what is your social media? The listeners find you?
http.camden
Okay, perfect. All
on
right.
Instagram.
No, you're good. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you tune in again and have a nice day.